So it seems that this is official now, so now we'll talk about it. Carmelo Anthony heading to the Houston Rockets. It's going to happen in a few days, although we all pretty much knew it was going to happen for the last week or so. 1 year, $2.5 million. Can Carmelo Anthony actually help the Rockets? To put it bluntly, I think he can help them on offense and not help them on defense. We'll dive into a little bit more than just that. If we start with offense, the biggest thing is if Melo will just not steal the Rockets' offense. So don't post up and don't ISO unless there is a clear advantage. So if he's got a smaller guy on him, or if he's matched up against a bigger guy, which I don't know if that's going to happen too much because he played power forward most of the time with the Thunder, and that didn't really make a difference. He was in the 58th percentile of isolation players last season, which is not good enough to give him the ball. And he still ISO'd 3 times a game. And he also hasn't been that good of a post-up player, just in terms of numbers in a couple seasons, but I do think with this Rockets team, because of all the screening that they do, and how good of a offensive team they are with all the shooting, I think a lot of defenses are forced to switch on them. So if Chris Paul and Melo run screens, then we could see point guard switched onto Melo, and if that's the case, then I could picture him taking those guys into the post, and perhaps he could be a bit more successful with his back to the basket than he has the past couple of seasons, because I think with OKC's offense, which wasn't always the most creative, it would just be really simple post-ups that were easier to defend, and maybe he had a bigger defender on him, so that's something that could help him out and help out Houston as well. Another thing I'll be interested in is the pace that the Rockets play with when Melo is out there, because in the regular season last year they had a pace of 99, in the playoffs it was 97, so they slowed it down a bit, and at times it seemed like their offense was in quicksand when it was just Harden bringing the ball up, and then they would still run good sets and get open shots, but it's are they going to slow down even a little bit more to cater to Carmelo? Because I don't think he can really hang around in a faster style offense, which occasionally I think Houston gets into, especially when Chris Paul really wants to take it on the break, which, again, doesn't happen all the time, but it was still a weapon that Houston had, and maybe Melo could actually hurt them in that regard, but you could also argue that slowing it down a little bit would also allow Melo to be a better offensive player for them, so there's some wiggle room in there. Is there anything else in terms of Melo initiating offense before I just get to the shooting? I guess looking at him as a pick-and-roll ball handler, will he be another guy who could play that offense? Because you could say that he is replacing Trevor Ariza, I guess. You could say James Ennis is replacing Mbah a Moute, Melo's replacing Ariza. While Ariza was definitely a way better defensive player, Melo has real ball handling abilities to where that could be a fourth ball handler, I guess. Because Eric Gordon was pretty damn good when he had to fill in for Chris Paul when he was hurt, and when, Chris Paul wouldn't be in the game or whatever. So we could see some moments where that is the case with Melo, and then you could have Harden playing off the ball, but I wouldn't want to run that too often because, if you've got a chance to run a pick and roll with Chris Paul, James Harden, or Carmelo Anthony, you're going to pick one of the first two, of course. So, but in little pockets here and there, I think it could help out. And also, I think, I've said this, I don't think I've said this, I've thought it at least. I think Chris Paul should play 27 minutes a game this year. Just have him be as ready as he possibly can be for the Warriors in the conference finals. Or, someone else, because the West, it's intriguing this year with some more teams at the top, so you want to be able to play Chris Paul 37 minutes a night in the postseason and not have him get injured, so you got to play him less in the regular season, and Melo could at least fill in for some of that offense. He is still able to have some scoring nights, even if it's nowhere near as consistent as it once was. All right, let's get to the shooting now. He was pretty good on catch and shoot threes, around 37, 38% on a decent amount of attempts a game last year. He's just got to emphasize that part of his game. While I think there's potential for a couple pick and rolls a game, maybe 1 or 2 post-ups, depending on the matchup, we really shouldn't see that much of Melo anymore. Like, if he could just be an off-ball player and just do his best, like, Paul Pierce in Washington impression, then that would be good, right? If he starts to want the ball more and he gets frustrated because he hasn't touched the ball in, I don't know, 4 possessions because James Harden took 2 step-back threes, drove inside for a foul, and then alley-ooped it up to Clint Capella, then that's going to be a problem. And then he could be a little disengaged. Some of this coming from the fact that he really hasn't handled his ego very well, at least the 1 year in OKC. And then, you know, he just won't be as good for them. So hopefully, be a catch-and-shoot guy and all that, and be fine with averaging like 12 points a game or something. Now, if we get to defense, unfortunately, I think even if Melo does swallow his pride and is all in on being the ultimate 6th man, or, I mean, he could still end up starting, I don't know. But even if he's all in on that stuff, I don't think he can do it on defense. Because when has he ever? I mean, I think at his peak he was like not bad on defense, but at this point, the only way he's going to become like a not bad defender is if he lost a lot of weight, and even when he was an MVP candidate, you could tell he was still a little too heavy. Maybe he had a season or 2 in there where he was in really good shape, but I'm not going to bank on it. Even then, his defensive principles just overall are not that good. And, I mean, sure, the fact that Houston switches everything might be able to help him, but even then, it could actually hurt him a lot because teams will just target him, right? So now, instead of just being able to switch, Houston's going to have to, like, fight over screens, go under screens, or, I don't know, depending on the opponent, leave someone open who can't shoot as well, or whatever, you know? And sure, I think in terms of regular season wins, that's not going to make a drastic difference, but, I mean, we saw the defensive performance this team put on against the Warriors, right? And Carmelo Anthony, I'm not going to bank on him being able to do that. I'm not going to think that he can do what Trevor Ariza did with the way that he moved around the floor and defended one-on-one and collapsed on a ball handler and then got back out to his guy, and the quick little swipe to a ball handler who he's not defending but is like driving at the top of the key. You know, those kind of things that make a difference when everyone is locked in. And if you have one guy in Melo who is just a clear black hole on top of James Harden, who, to his credit, has done his damnedest to become like average and an above average post defender, but still, you got bad in Melo, you got average with James Harden. It's rough, you know? And sure, I think they can still be a pretty damn good defensive team, because between Chris Paul, Clint Capella, Gordon, who's actually decent, PJ Tucker, who's of course very good, I think James Ennis has a chance to at least be okay. But do I think they're going to be like one of the best defensive teams in the league again? Probably not. So, yeah, it is what it is on the defensive side of the floor. Now, could you just not play Carmelo? Yeah, there's a chance. He's already getting his money, so I don't think he's going to cry too much. Also, if he does cry, who cares? Which means you may have to still go out and get a defensive wing, which I'm sure Daryl Morey can do. He's already banking on James Ennis, and Gerald Green, he's a body. I wouldn't count on him to do it either, but he's a guy. But someone will become available. I don't know who that someone is, but if they really want a defensive wing who hopefully has some sort of offensive stuff, they can get him. And I guess you do that if the Melo thing is just a total disaster and he's just killing you on defense. I mean, a lineup of Chris Paul, James Harden, James Ennis, PJ Tucker, Clint Capella, or Eric Gordon in the place of James Ennis. Those lineups could end up being better than Carmelo Anthony at small forward. So, that's my take on this. I think that offensively they'll be fine. Defensively, there's going to be problems. And I've got to charge my phone.